Adam Will Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 9, and my thoughts on this episode. And my thoughts are back to the boring episodes, and we have about two big mistakes in this episode about the Klingons that these writers don't fucking get. Yeah, not a great episode, and not an episode that just pissed me off, just kind of boring, kind of dull. I mean, I kind of get the premise of the episode, showing all the other lower decks. But, yeah, I mean, I get why you'd make an episode like this, but you could have made it a lot more fun. And we have a continuation of a plot that's been going throughout these seasons with the Pakleds. I mean, I thought that shit was over and done with, or just a side story. Is that now, like, the main story of this show now? But, yeah, I mean, I did like the space battle in this episode. But, yeah, the problems are kind of still there with the Klingons. They get a lot wrong about the Klingons in this episode. Characters, I mean, no, there's not really much. I mean, again, we don't see a lot of the crew in this episode. We kind of leave them alone because this episode's more concentrated on other lower deckers rather than our lower deckers. So, yeah, again, I mean, it was just boring. I mean, boring to watch. It's probably going to be boring to talk about. So, let's go into spoilers now. I mean, again, a dull episode, all in all. But the mistakes are pretty fucking big. So, spoilers. So, this episode is pretty much about about other lower deck crews on different ships. So, lower deckers on a Klingon ship and lower deckers on a Romulan ship. Well, when I say lower deckers, it's basically we concentrate on one lower decker from each ship. We don't concentrate on a group, which I think would have been much better if they concentrated on a group of lower deckers rather than just one lower decker from each ship. I think it's kind of pointless then, because you're just like weakening your story. And if we are going to do an episode on another lower deck crew, why not concentrate on one ship? I mean, doing this bigger story kind of just takes away from learning about lower deckers from other ships. I mean, if you just did one, it would have made more sense. But they didn't. And, well, the mistakes in this episode are pretty big. One's going to be the Klingon blood. I know. Pretty much the dumbest thing to get wrong. Listen, the movies were great to watch, writers of Lower Decks. Unfortunately, the Klingon blood, yeah, that shit got ended when it got to Next Generation because they couldn't afford to do pink blood or purple blood. So they just gave Klingons normal blood. It's pretty fucking obvious when you watch every other Star Trek show. The Klingons have red blood, not purple blood. They did that in the movies. I honestly don't know why. I mean, I think they just wanted to make them seem more alien. But yeah, throughout Star Trek, I mean, after the movies, the Klingons went back to having red blood. If you wanted to do an episode showing different kinds of coloured blood, you should have used the Vulcans. The Vulcans are the only species, well, I know, that have different coloured blood to everybody else. And I've just kind of think they've concentrated so much on copying the movies, they've kind of forgot to watch the fucking shows. Because the Klingons don't have purple blood anymore, they have red blood. And if somebody says, well, that's not true because I saw it in the movies, again, it was in the movies, but in the show, you can literally see when Worf cuts himself, when Klingons get hurt, red blood is coming out of them. Sorry to disappoint anybody who thinks that they have purple blood. Again, I used to think that myself. I was like, every time I watched a fucking Next Generation episode or a Deep Space Nine episode, and I've seen the Klingons having red blood, it's like, don't they have purple blood? So yeah, a massive mistake from the writers of Lower Decks. Another mistake they've made about the Klingons is the the system for challenging your commanding officer. You don't just challenge them. Okay, you can't just say you want to get promotion and all you want to do is pick up a knife and just challenge them. You can't do that. Because in this episode they show a lower decker becoming the captain of their ship. In reality, that would never have worked. I mean, that would never have happened. I say reality, but in Star Trek lore, a lower decker can't just become second in command of a Klingon ship. They do have a ranking system. Okay, the captain is not going to pick a lower decker to be their second in command. It's just never going to happen, because again, there's different ranks on the ship already, and the rank that would be next up for second in command would be their third in command. So how a lower decker could just think that they're going to get to be the second officer is stupid. And you don't just take command of a ship after you kill the captain. The crew have to be on your side as well. So yeah, that was a mistake in this episode as well. Again, I get what they're trying to do, but you kind of destroyed it by making the guy a lower decker. If you want to do a story like this, you should have made him second in command, third in command, fourth in command, not last in command. I mean, if they're lower deckers, they are pretty much at the bottom of the crew, aren't they? Anyway. We also found out what it's like to be a lower decker on a Vulcan ship. Now, Vulcan ships are supposed to be very rare in the Federation, because again, the Vulcans do rely heavily on the Federation fleet. Again, I know they've watched some Star Trek, they've watched some movies, and they think this is what the Vulcans are. They have their own shit. That stuff has pretty much been phased out at this point by the Federation, because because the Vulcans became more attached to the Federation. So yes, they may have their own ships, but I just doubt they would have an old design like that as their main ship. But anyway, we find out what it's like to be a lower decker on a Vulcan ship. It turns out they literally just really play on the Vulcans being like heartless bastards, basically. And then it's kind of weird, they're trying to say all these Vulcans are heartless and, you know, no emotions, all that. And then there's one lower decker. She seems to keep following her emotions. She keeps not being a good Vulcan. I mean, I get what they're trying to do with the episode, but I don't know. It didn't seem right. The Vulcans just seemed a bit too wooden. You know, Spock was a Vulcan, and he acted like a Vulcan, but he never kind of felt like he was a wooden character. He did show emotion, but in his own way. And when you see other people trying to do Vulcans, I'm not going to say this for all Star Trek, they don't do it right. They don't do it like Spock. It's kind of a lot more wooden, unfortunately. And her story's basically she's showing too much emotions, and the crew of the ship's trying to tell her to stop being different to all the other Vulcans, but she rebels and, you know, saves the ship at the end. So that was her story, because again, we just concentrated on two people in this episode. Oh, I forgot about Boimler. How can I forget about Boimler? This episode, well, what our lower deckers are doing is basically they have a long warp, so everybody's taken some downtime. Apparently everybody in Boimler's group has a fucking bridge buddy. Rutherford, Tendi, and Mariner, they have their bridge friends that they're going to hang out with, but Boimler doesn't, and Boimler wants to get a friend, and he ends up the whole episode just screwing up, and at the end he manages to make a friend with somebody who's lower than him, and that was his story in this episode. And that was it, and everybody else was kind of just just doing their own thing in this episode, so wasn't that fun to watch. But the main point of this episode was finding out that the Klingons have been helping the Pakleds. So they're the ones giving the Pakleds their weapons. That's why they're running amok over the galaxy. Apparently some Klingons are trying to destabilize the region so they can take it over, because they're going with the old trope of the Klingons want to become a bigger empire again. I mean, at this point for the Klingon Empire, after the Dominion War, do you really think they have the ships, the manpower? They lost a lot of fucking people in that war. So I just really doubt the Klingons will be trying to start wars, because if they get found out, they're going to get fucked over, and then they're going to get invaded. Because again, they lost a lot of people, and they would stay pretty close to the Federation for protection, so they can rebuild themselves. So, didn't really like that. That this is the reason the Pakleds have gone insane and are just attacking and invading people. I mean, it was a good space battle. I mean, I will admit that, and the Vulcans saving a ship with a new type of shield, that was fun to watch. But yeah, I just the story kind of boring. Kind of could have done a better story with that. I mean, if anybody's going to destabilize a region, it's going to be the Vulcans. I mean, what the fuck would they have to lose? Not the Vulcans, the Romulans. I mean, they do this all the fucking time. Or you could have said it was the Ferengi who wanted to fucking, clear the region out because they want to get some sort of profit from the area. I mean, just going to the Klingons, I don't know. It just seemed a bit too lazy to me. Yeah, and so the episode ends with a lower decker on the Klingon ship becoming captain of his ship, the Vulcan being sent to Starfleet because she's too human for them, Vulcans, and Boimler makes a new friend, and that's how the episode ends. Not a great episode, and it pissed me off. Again, with Lower Decks, I feel like I need to be pissed off to have a really good review. Or at least have a good episode to have a good review. And you don't really get that with this show anymore. You don't get good episodes and you don't get terrible episodes. You just get boring, dull episodes that have too many mistakes. So, again, I mean, I will give it 1+. We had no sex jokes. There was no sex jokes in this fucking episode. I was very surprised. Because I kept thinking, when's Vulcan sex joke going to come? Because again, the Vulcans pom-far shit. I mean, I kind of thought, come on, they're gonna make a joke about it at some point, aren't they? I mean, it's an open fucking goal for a fucking sex joke. I mean, come on. But they didn't, so I was pretty surprised about that. But other than that, yeah, boring episode. Probably not gonna watch again. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably say 3. I mean, there was entertaining bits, and I'll say the space battle again. I like a good space battle. I thought it was okay. Not fantastic, but it was something. And it's the only fucking thing I can point to that I enjoyed about this episode. Other than that, do I really want to talk about the stupid Hawaii shit? Now, there was just this side story with Boimler and the second officer about Hawaii, and it turned out he was lying about it. I mean, ugh. Yeah, it's kind of pointless. But yeah, that's my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content too, think about subscribing. Hail the Phantom Menace, long live CG, and fuck SJWs. Bye.